Tonight, NDC minority in parliament accuses Vice President Dr. Bawumia of copying from former President Mahama and throws challenge to him to get his government to scrap e-levy and other taxes now and not wait till next year when he hopes to be president.
He's their flag bearer and the leader of the party. So if he means well, he has whatever it takes to bring a bill to parliament to get these taxes removed now. Our flag bearer, His Excellency President Mahama, has made public pronouncement that when given the power, will remove it. He's only copying him.
The minority has also tonight attacked the vice president for being dishonest. We'll hear from the majority chief whip who has been mounting a defense.
He's a mate on a trotro driven by a competent driver. Given the mandate, he himself would do something different. Yes, for me it's insignificant.
We also have fact-checking of some of the claims made by the vice president for you all here on Top Story. And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. My name is Evans Mensah. It has been 24 hours since Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia mounted the stage to state his case for president. He attempted to create a distance between himself and the president, his boss. Well, tonight he is the subject of intense criticism from the minority in Parliament tonight. And indeed, the minority has been taking him on from the NDC side. They accuse him of being dishonest and copying from the opposition flag bearer John Mahama. Now, Dr. Bawumia had declared he will abolish a raft of taxes, including the controversial e-levy, if he is elected president next year. The e-levy is still being implemented, and the minority has tonight thrown a challenge to the vice president to get his government to scrap the levy now and not wait till next year. We'll hear from the minority leader, Dr. Kesela Tofosing, who has been addressing a news conference shortly. But first, we have been going through the Vice President's speech with a fine comb. My colleague, Kofi J, with our research desk, joins us now with some fact-checking. And Kofi, let's start with the claims around inflation. The Vice President yesterday says inflation has declined from 54% in January to 23% in December 2023. What did we find?
Well, Evans, the first part of this claim is true. So according to the Ghana Statistical Service Monthly Consumer Price Index for the month of December 2023, the figure was 23.2%. So the difference is just 0.2, so we can forgive him for that. But it is not accurate to say that the rate was 54% in January 2024. The actual figure was 53.6. The difference is 0.4, and that's not forgivable.
Why is that in inflation terms?
Because it's significant. 0.4 in inflation, you can't just write that off.
Let's talk about the fiscal deficit. And the Vice President says that the fiscal deficit, which was reduced from 8.4% in 2016 to 4.1% by 2019, increased to 10.8% in 2020.
Let's start with 2016. He said the fiscal deficit was 8.4%. This claim is false, Evans. So we've been combing some documents. One from the Ministry of Finance 2016 fiscal data sheet. The figure there is 7.8%. Now we also found a different figure in the IMF 2017 Article 4, Table 1 and page 7. The overall fiscal deficit for 2016 was 9.3%. And so Dr. Bawumia's claim there was false.
And at least they have to indicate where did they get theirs from, because the finance ministry's position on this matter is different. They quote a different number.
Absolutely.
To that particular subject.
Now, let's also go to 2019. He quoted a figure of 4.1% in 2019. This is also false, because according to the Finance Ministry 2019 fiscal data sheet, without financial sector cleanup, the deficit was 4.8%, and with the financial sector cleanup, we're talking about 5.8%. The 2020 mid-year budget, page 13, put the figure at 4.8%, and you have the 2021 IMF Article 4 document titled Ghana Selected Economic and Financial Indicators 2019 to 2022. The figure there was 7.5%. Then you also have the same IMF Article 4 The same document, without financial sector cleanup, we're talking about a deficit of 4.7. So the
So all
4.1
those sources again have numbers
Exactly.
different from what we had yesterday from the
yeah.
vice president.
We also have 2020. He quoted a figure of 8.5% in 2020. Per our checks, this claim is also false. Finance Ministry, 2020 fiscal data sheet, without the financial sector cleanup, the deficit was 11.7% and not 10.8. Ministry of Finance 2020 fiscal data sheet with the financial sector cleanup, we're talking about a deficit of 13.8%. 2021 mid-year budget, page 18 and 19, the deficit was 11.7%. Then you have the IMF, Article 4, putting the preliminary figure at 15.2%. So all these figures we've mentioned are higher than the 10.8% mentioned by the vice president.
And there's another claim here which relates to spending. And the vice president made the point that spending is under control, with a fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP has declined from 10.8 in 2020 to 4.2 in 2023.
Well, we've already established that his 10.8% claim in 2020 is false. So now let's go to 2023. This is partly true, Evans. If you look at the 2024 IMF Article 4 document, table titled Ghana Selected Economic and Financial Sector Indicators 2022 to 2028, the figure put there was 4.6%. So we can give him some slack there.
Let's talk about the another claim that was made in 2018. A total of 346,911 passports were issued.
Well, the best place to actually get this data should be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. So we decided to take a look at their what we call the program-based budget. And according to the ministry's 2020 program-based budget, page 65, it puts the 2018 registered data at 194,549. Their target that year, 2018, was 200,000. So this is way higher than the figure that the vice president quoted.
Kofi, thank you very much for that. Going through the statement as put forth yesterday by the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, that address in which he sought to create a distance between himself and the President. Well, in Parliament today, the Minority Leader, Dr. Kaisela Tufosing, has been addressing the press. He challenged the Vice President, accusing him of copying his main rival, John Mahama. He wants him to scrap the levies. He says he will scrap right now and not wait till next year when he hopes to be president.
It should be noted that our vice president currently has the powers to remove any tax if he so wishes. This is obviously for a simple reason that, one, our vice president is the chairman of the economic management team. He chairs the deliberations of all economic policies at his office. Aside that, he is also a member of President Akufo-Addo's cabinet. In fact, he is the second in command of President Akufo-Addo's cabinet. He chairs some of the cabinet meetings in the absence of the president. And in fact, in certain days that they are discussing issues relating to the economy, he more or less co-chairs with the president. So all of these economic policies that President Akufo-Addo has implemented since 2017 were actually supervised by our vice president. And it should be noted, his position has further been strengthened because he's now the leader of the NPP, the governing NPP, in fact, the governing party of the Republic of Ghana. He's their flag bearer and the leader of the party. So if he means well, he has whatever it takes to bring a bill to Parliament to get these taxes removed now. What we are asking him to do is simple. The NDC currently opposes all these taxes he has talked about. In fact, we have opposed it here in Parliament. We've opposed it in public. Our flag bearer, His Excellency President Mahama, has made public pronouncement that when given the power, will remove it. He's only copying him. Aside copying him, I want to urge him that, and urge the people of Ghana, the only reason why these taxes are still effective It's because the NDC is not in office. So now that MPP is in the office, and the vice president indeed is the chairman of the economic management team, vice president of the Republic of Ghana, the second in command in the Kufuor's administration, and also the leader of the MPP. He has whatever it takes to bring the bill to parliament if he so desires. And let me add this. These bills were first presented to this house when he was sitting here. He came to parliament with the minister responsible for finance to impose the e-levy. He can't turn around to come back and to tell all of us that he's not part of it. But let me add that the General Secretary of MPP sits in cabinet. He left cabinet and informed the people of Ghana that the vice president approved the e-levy and voted for the e-levy. The minister responsible for information, my brother Custodial Ponkroma, is a member of cabinet. He says that the bill was prepared by the vice president. So for him to prepare one bill, ask parliament, whip all their members of parliament to vote for and to turn around to say that they should remove the tax is very disgraceful and shameful. In fact, I want to add that this shows the kind of credibility he has. He has no credibility.
Well, we heard from a bit more of the minority MPs. Ahasan Suhini is the Tamale North MP, explaining that the vice president cannot claim credit for the positives that this government had chalked.
Well, I think that it is ridiculous listening to His Excellency the Vice President approbate and reprobate. Here is a man who claims credit for some of the things that look right in the administration that he is part of, and shamelessly runs away from some of the obvious failures of this administration. When we were told from day one and in between that he is an integral part of the policy decisions of this government, and not once has he ever denied those claims, either made by the senior minister, made by the information minister, or made by the party general secretary. Not once has he ever denied the claims that he's an integral part of the policy decisions of this government. And so for him to shamelessly come out at this time to project himself as one who is not to be held responsible for some of the failures of this government, but one deserving of credit for some of the things that are, seemingly positive of this government, can only be a mark of, excuse my language, a dishonest person. I mean, I think that it is shameful. It takes politics to a new low. I mean, how on earth do you, a candidate on a party ticket, present what seems like your personal manifesto? We do not know the NPP's manifesto yet. In fact, when I was listening to him for a moment, I thought he was the one who formed the butterfly movement. Because clearly, I mean, it beats one's imagination that he sounds like he is an embodiment of the NPP. Because clearly, the NPP, I'm sure, will have a manifesto for the 2024 general elections. Or that is what he was outdooring as his own personal manifesto. And in doing so, interestingly, he is seen contradicting the NPP's government policies. So it's like my personal manifesto contradicts the government policies. I dare say that if we are not careful, even the NPP's manifesto will contradict his personal policies. So perhaps, maybe Alan should have been on that NPP ticket. After all, he's a party man. And maybe he should have been, with the butterfly trying to, bring about the emergence of a third force. I think that Dr. Bawumia is clearly confused. He's lost directions, he's lost focus. The deception is no longer working. And I think that this new trick is just what it is, a trick.
Well, in Parliament, the minority side have their say today. And the majority side have also been attempting to put up a defense. Let's bring in my parliamentary correspondent who joins us with what we're hearing from the majority side on this controversial matter following the address yesterday. Kweku Asante joins me right now. Kweku, so we've been hearing from the majority chief whip.
Yes, Frank Anadon has sought to answer to some of the concerns that have been expressed by the minority leader himself, by Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed, by Alhassan Suhini, And a number of key NDC MPs today who have sought to respond
Your
to
call
some
has
of
been
the
put on
issues
hold.
they heard from
Please
Dr.
wait.
Mahmoud Bawumia
Your
yesterday.
call has...
All Frank Anodam Press seeks to, put across in terms of defending the position taken by Dr. Bawumia is that Dr. Bawumia cannot be held responsible for everything that have gone wrong with the government. And that Dr. Bawumia has clearly put out a vision that he is his own man, and if Ghanaians give him the power and the mantle to lead from 2025, then they will see the difference.
He also confirm and believe in him that given the mandate, he will be able to lead our country to where we are all desirous of seeing. So for me, it was important. Impressive. Yeah, that is his view. That is his view, and he explained. He explained that he's what do you call it? A mate on a trotro driven by a competent driver. Given the mandate, he himself would do something different. Yes, for me, it's significant. And many people will not be able to do that. Many people will not be able to do that, to look into your boss's face and tell him that I'm going to be different, I will do this differently. That is a mark of boldness.
Isn't it early days yet for him to scrap off these things that he intends to roll out?
I don't know what you call early days, but the man is seeking to lead a country. And once you are seeking to lead the country, you are also expected to speak to some challenges and some issues that is bothering us. And for me, there's no question mark about being early days yet. He's setting the tone. Somebody is moving around the country campaigning. You want him to sit down.
Let me bring in right now the communications officer, the National Communications Officer of the main opposition, NDC. Sami Jamefi joins us right now. We'll also be speaking to Dr. Tia Kabiru Mahama, who is the economic advisor to the Vice President. Both gentlemen joined me right now. Mr. Jamefi, so do you agree, as a Vice President asserted yesterday, that as a Vice President, he is only akin to a driver's mate?
That is ridiculous. The Vice President is not akin to a driver's mate, because the Vice President is supposed to meet the eligibility criteria of the office of President. A driver's mate need not have a driver's license. It doesn't even need to be somebody who can drive. But in the case of the Vice President, he must meet the eligibility criteria of the President, because he and the President are elected on the same ticket. And the Vice President stands in and acts as President anytime the President is unavailable. Again, a driver can sack his mate at will, but a President cannot sack a Vice President at will, because that office is a creation of the Constitution. You see, so Dr. Bawumia is akin to a co-pilot who assists the main pilot to fly an aircraft and can't be called upon to even take over the seat of the main pilot when the main pilot is tired or indisposed. He was elected on the same ticket with President Akufo-Addo, and therefore bears the same responsibility for the mandate they were given by the people of this country. And to that extent, he bears collective liability with the President for the failings of this government, which has led to a complete destruction of the Ghanaian economy. You see, success, they say, has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. Vice President Bawumia, who has been chairman of the economic management team and responsible for the management of the economy, is today distancing himself from President Akufo-Addo, stigmatizing him, ostracizing him, because he knows that this government he's a part of has been a monumental failure. They have flattered to deceive on all their promises, including the lofty promises Bawumia made in the run-up to the 2016 and 2020 elections. And they have deteriorated and worsened all the economic matrices and the buffers we bequeathed to them in 2015.
Well, the Vice President says that, in essence, is not something you can ultimately blame him for, because he is just assisting, if you may. And if you go to the Constitution, you touch on the Constitution. The Constitution says, as far as the Vice President's position is concerned, that there shall be a Vice President of Ghana who shall perform such functions as may be assigned to him by this Constitution or by the President. He's at the beck and call of the President. Is what
exactly.
The President only tells him what to do.
Assigned him the role of the chairman of the economic management team, which oversees the management of the entire economy. In fact, in the 2018 State of the Nation address, the President lauded the stellar leadership of Bawumia, the chairman of the economic management team, and attributed what he described as economic successes of his government to Bawumia. It is instructive to note that the President even didn't take the credit. He gave the credit to Bawumia because he knows that Bawumia is the one who has assigned that task. The senior minister, Yawa publicly lauded Vice President Bawumia's leadership of the economic management team and said that they have come this far because of the hard work of Bawumia.
But the ultimate responsibility lies with the President and not the Vice President. Do you disagree with that?
Can you repeat that?
Ultimate responsibility, even looking at the constitutional context I just quoted, still lies with the President and not him.
But direct responsibility for the economic management lies with Bawumia. And ultimate responsibility lies with Akufo-Addo, who gave him that delegated authority. So there are two inseparable Siamese twins. Like President Mahama said, Jack Toronto and the State brother, they work together. They share the credit of their successes and they share the blame and liability for their failures. It is cowardly. It is dishonest. It is shameful, disgraceful, desperate for Dr. Bawumia, after he has claimed credit for his stewardship as Vice President, to turn around and say that when it comes to the mess, he has got nothing to do with it.
Stay with me, Sammy. Let me bring in Dr. Tia Kabiru Mahama, who joins us also. He's the economic advisor to the Vice President. And Doc, the point that Sammy makes is a point, as you know, because a substantive precedent assigned him to a role that he says he's directly responsible for, if you take Sammy's point. But the Vice President himself yesterday applauded the team he'd worked with and defended the advice that they've given to the President. He, therefore, is part of a government. There's collective responsibility that he cannot run away from.
Yeah, so thank you, Rivans, and thank you. Like you said, I missed a greater part of Sammy's presentation, and I suppose to suggest that he's denying the fact that the Vice President is just the Vice President and that he had powers just like the President to do as he wishes. If that is the thinking, then I just think that Sani Gyamfi is not being true to the fact. The Vice President was the Vice President to the President, Ms. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. His role was clearly spelled out for him to chair the economic management team and to have oversight responsibility and to lead the digitization of the Ghanaian economy as the vehicle for ensuring that we have an advanced economy. So the Vice President clearly stated what the task he was given to do. As the chair of the EMT, it was supposed to be an advisory body or committee, a sub-cabinet committee to the cabinet. And the cabinet ends with the President, who has the executive power, so much enormous executive power, entrusted into his hands by the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. The Vice President is not running away from the fact that he was part of the government. In fact, as a matter of fact, he started off his presentation and the presentation of his vision statement with the track record of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and even stated clearly that the records, no matter how bad, the bad performance of this government is the best performance of the NDC government.
But Kabiru, the point being made is the Vice President, yes, he himself says, I am very proud of the quality of advice we have been providing over the years to the cabinet. And yet, as we've seen, we are facing a horrific economic crisis. He certainly takes equal responsibility for the failings of this government, does he not?
Yeah, so the point is that then he will be asking us to visit the scenes of the principal on the agent. The Vice President, no matter if in line or in line with justice, cannot take responsibility
take, vigorously for the offenses of the principal, if there are any.
But he's part of that group that collectively made the decision, and he says his advice to that group that made the decisions that got us where we are was high quality.
That advice ends or stops at the back of the president. Okay, it can be, no matter how compelling your advice could be, no matter how standard you could advise a person, the person has the ultimate responsibility of accepting, implementing, or rejecting that. Okay, so if that person who has that responsibility to accept your advice is there, he cannot be there and you then blame the mere advisor as the person responsible for everything.
So it's the president's fault, not Bawumia's.
The president has not even got fault when it comes to the management of the Ghanaian economy.
So who has?
Basically, the Ghanaian economy was faced with several challenges like any other economy. I know you've stayed in the UK. You have seen the UK horrific experiences of the economy collapsing. You know other economies. Do you blame global leadership for the failing of global economies?
Oh, absolutely.
No,
I mean, everything is about leadership. Everything is about leadership. And that is why that's why some countries had minimal impact on the economies than others. Sammy, just a second. I'll come to you. Isn't that the fundamental point? It's about leadership. And Bawumia is a leader in this government in his own space. He must certainly take part of the blame.
So now, if you want to assess the leader of the vice president, Dr. Bawumia, in his own space, Evans, if you want to assess him in his own space, then mark him against the role he was asked to perform. When he's falling short of those roles, then you can then blame him. But you can't assume that the vice president is part of the government, and the fact that a cleaner is not doing his work, you have to blame him on the vice president when he is not the ultimate responsibility. He hasn't got the ultimate responsibility.
Stay with me. I mean, and Sammy, you criticize the vice president, but yesterday he also put forth facts to make the point that even if they are bad, he says your period, in terms of how worse it is currently and what it used to be, let me quote him, it was far better than that of 2013 to 2016 period. This is a man you criticize.
My brother, there is not even a single economic matrix which is better today than it was in 2016, not one. They have collapsed the economy. There is no argument about that. We don't have time to talk about that, so let me just expose the duplicity of my good brother Kabiru. How can Kabiru in one breath say that Bawumia was a mere agent, hence cannot take liability or blame for the failings of the principal? And yet, in another breath, they give Bawumia credit for the successes of the principal. Why is Bawumia being given credit for one constituency, one ambulance? Agenda 111. Why? Why is it that in that case they won't say, they are not saying that the credit should go to Akufo-Addo because Bawumia was a mere agent? Hypocrites. That is what they are. If the vice president is a mere advisor, he is a mere agent, then Evans, my question is this. How come that in 2016, Dr. Bawumia directed 170 questions at then Vice President and Chairman of the Economic Management Team, Pakwesi Misata? Pakwesi Misata, was he a principal? Wasn't he a mere agent of John Mahama per their logic, per this logic they are advancing? So how come that Bawumia did not direct his so-called 170 questions at Mahama, the principal, but directed it at Pakwesi Misata? Because he knows that even though the president has ultimate responsibility, he has delegated the management of the economy to the vice who chairs the economic management team. And therefore, that vice president bears direct responsibility for the economy. This is simple. No amount of subterfuge can exculpate Bawumia from responsibility.
You say that committee bears direct responsibility for the economy. Is that really factual? Because they still have to go to cabinet, and in cabinet, the president has a final say.
No, but Bawumia is a member of cabinet. He is the co-chair or the vice chair of cabinet. All the members of the economic management team, the finance minister, the agric minister, the trade minister, all of them, they are members of cabinet.
Yeah, but they are members. They don't have
And
the
they
final say.
They are in the majority in cabinet.
But they don't have the final say.
Look at their number. Check the number of the economic management
It's
team.
not about number. It's not about number.
They are the majority in cabinet.
But that's not what the issue is. About who takes the final decision. It's the president.
My brother, if the president takes a decision, that decision binds the vice president. Then Bawumia should not even have agreed to be the running mate of. By agreeing to be the running mate of somebody and being on the same ticket of that person, it means that you are submitting to the vision and leadership of that person. His successes are your successes. His failures are your failures. This is simple. What can they understand about this? Because of electoral votes, today Bawumia wants to abandon Akufo-Addo, stigmatizing, ostracizing. Really? Really? Has he forgotten that it was Akufo-Addo who picked him from a place of oblivion and brought him into prominence? Has he forgotten what Akufo-Addo has done for him?
I mean,
Akufo-Addo told Ghanaians that the sole reason why he made him running mate was because he was a renowned economist who had the magic wand to transform the economy. When Akufo-Addo was giving you credit in his 2018 Sona for transforming the economy, you were happy, applauding, smiling. Go and watch the video. Today, the economy is in a state of comatose. So you want Akufo-Addo to take all the blame for the mess when you have the direct responsibility for managing the economy. The finance minister is under you. He's a member of the EMC.
I mean, Sammy, just a second, Sammy. Did I just hear you defend the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo?
No, but now Akufo-Addo is looking like a lonely old man. I'm just feeling pity for him. That this is the time that his vice president, who he entrusted with the management of the economy, has to stand by him and say, look, we take collective responsibility. We have failed. We could have done things better. We have failed. Now the vice president says, no. As for the credit, it is mine. But as for the blame, it is solely that of Akufo-Addo. Come on, what kind of fucking ungrateful story is this?
Tiakabiru.
Yeah, I think this is not what the vice president is portraying, and to simplify that and to trivialize that, to say that the vice president is running away from the records of the NPP is to not be factual. The vice president defended, and the first part of his speech was basically to defend the records of the NPP and to state that our worst performance was your best performance, and that if you want, we can go to the data, we can go to the numbers and argue about that. And even in any case, Mr. Steven Jamfi is speaking, and I mean, seriously so, for a man, he wants to come back, who has had the ultimate responsibility as a president and failed the people of Ghana and was booted out. He's now coming back to defend such a man, to say that such a man should rather be given an opportunity over a man who was not given opportunity as a president. Come on. That would be the greatest injustice the Ghanaian people will do in terms of when you want to be fair to the facts and to the issue. Because Mr. Mahama had the opportunity to be president. Now he cannot even apportion blame. When he was vice president, he had the same excuse that Mr. Bawumia is having. As a vice president, he had the same excuse that he was the driver's mate. He was the vice president. He was the
co-pilot. What prevents Mr. Bawumia from using that same excuse? Okay, so for me, the NDC should not be talking about Dr. Bawumia making the point very true that he was only the vice president to the president. In any case, when you come to think of even the failure of this government, you can explain them away. Some of them you may not have explanation for. The government will take ultimate responsibility. But Mr. Jamfi should know that, look, the fact of the matter are, one, Mr. Mahama has been a president. When he was vice president, he gave us an excuse that he was vice president, and rightly so, the constitution didn't give him the mandate. As he was given him as a president, we gave him the opportunity. He served us. Ghanaians assessed him. He failed. Dr. Bawumia is coming to say that on the same yardstick, that the people of Ghana gave John Mahama an opportunity to show how different he would be from Mr. John Atenor. I need the same opportunity to prove to the people of Ghana that I have my own vision, I am my own man, and I can do things differently. Basically, this is what he's asking for.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Just run out of time on this. This debate definitely will continue, and I see many of you joining us with your thoughts. Also, Sammy Jamfi is the National Communications Officer of the NDC. Dr. Tia Kabiru Mahama is economic advisor to the Vice President. What is your verdict on that very controversial question? Is he just a driver's mate? Still ahead.
Tonight, proper family values bill now a step away from passage as Parliament concludes consideration stage, but majority and minority remain divided over calls to remove all custodial sentences from the bill, as a majority warns the bill will not achieve the desired results in its current state.
That is the real danger to our society, and that's why that punishment is even higher. So, Mr. Speaker, we stand by the minimum 3 years, maximum 5 years.
Should a person go to the prison, he would come back worse off. In the evening, the police officer told me that, counsel, if we send your client to Accra in G,
Details as Amnesty International threatens court action if Parliament goes ahead to pass the bill.
Go through the courts to challenge the bill. I believe that is the right thing for us to do, the right approach. We are all citizens of Ghana. If we don't agree with something, we can always go to court and challenge it.
We have details of a report of a possible impact of the bill on the economy. Also, February 13 demonstration by organized labor still on as they refuse to dialogue with the finance minister until he completely withdraws and not just suspend directive to charge 15% VAT on electricity.
And that is different from when you say withdraw. I don't think we are even going to have a discussion on this.
We will object it.
That it is not about suspension, but it is about total withdrawal.
But government insists on engaging labor to explore alternative revenue measures to plug the shortfall.
And they expect that those consultations will yield other measures. They are going to have to find a way to answer that question.
Meanwhile, brace yourself for alternative public transport as the Ghana Private Road Transport Union announces its readiness to join the nationwide protest as well. An office of the Vice President fights off claims Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia should have resigned after his advice on key economic policies, including emission and betting tax, was rejected by the President, explaining he stayed to offer alternative proposals.
You understand? So don't let us speak to boss people to a corner that why did you offer a position and it was not taken and you should leave. That should not be the practical way to go.
And in business, Ghana saves a little over $1.2 billion since it started commercial production of crude oil in commercial quantities.
And in sports, over 500 coaches express interest in the vacant Black Stars coaching job. We'll tell you more as the search committee readies to interview shortlisted candidates.
And much later, the Asantehene Otumfo said to the second says he's brought the spirit and soul of Ashanti back after he received more artifacts looted from Kumasi about 150 years ago at the Menchia Palace by the slave masters and taken abroad.
For us, they are not just regular arts. If they don't have the spiritual essence, how would they be taken away? But in 150 years, it will come back to its original source. The power in this is not the regular arts. It is something deeper than that.
And let's start from Parliament, where the anti-gay bill is back on the agenda, and the controversy around that is still raging. It's now a step away from passage as Parliament has concluded the consideration stage today.
But majority and minority remain divided over whether or not to remove all custodial sentences from the bill. The bill provides a range of sentencing, including 5-year jail terms for persons who engage or promote LGBTQI+ activities. Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Marking insists that in jail there are so many who are sodomized, and putting people in jail for LGBTQ activities will not reform them but leave them worse off. He advocates for fines instead.
The sponsors invite us to acknowledge this, that the object of the bill is to provide for proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values. Mr. Speaker, in coming to this floor with this amendment, I've read the two holy books which we are most familiar with, the Quran and the Bible. These two books of prominence talk about forgiveness, talk about reform. Mr. Speaker, if we insist on custodial sentence because a man, a Ghanaian, a citizen, or an individual within this jurisdiction has breached our proper human value system and family system, what do we want to do? To reform or to destroy?
That's the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo, marking there. Well, Chairman of Parliament's Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, Kwame Enyimadu-Antwi, backed this position.
Nothing, especially when the memorandum and the aim and the principles of this bill does not support the fact that we need to punish the person by imprisoning the person. If the person is imprisoned, we do not get a chance to reform the person. Especially, Mr. Speaker, may I have your protection? Honorable Kwame Abuja will not allow me to. If we have gotten to a level where nobody can say anything contrary apart from what they have proposed, then, Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't be.
I am listening to you, so
Mr.
please.
Speaker, so it is very important that, and I remember that the Catholic Bishop Conference, when they were before us, when we did the public hearing, one of the things that the pastor said was that God loves the doer of the act, but God hates the act. I then proceeded to ask, my Lord, so what do we do? Do we imprison the person? Then he said that I am not a member of parliament. You are members of parliament. So we leave the discretion to you to make your discretion. Mr. Speaker, this is the time. Is it the case that we have to put the person in prison? And what do we gain when the person is in prison? Statistics have shown that there's sodomy that we want to prevent is even practiced more when the person is put into prison. So why do we incarcerate the person into prison when we can get other, for instance, the community sentence that my friend proposes? For instance, if he's doing the community service and any person sees him and is asked what he did and is being allowed to do the community service, it's even more severe than sending the person to prison. So I will support the fact that if we can do away, and my friend made the proposal that this is not only on clause 14, we must as well, it must be consequential on clause 13 and clause 12 as well. That it must be consequential, that we have to do away with custodial sentence.
Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante is on the line with us now. Kweku, how did the minority side respond to this?
Well, Evans, we first heard from Mohammed Mun, who's the MP for Asawase. He made some really good points to contradict the points that have been made by the majority side by arguing that there will be the law that Parliament is currently considering will be useless if it does not come with custodial sentencing.
Ask my colleague, the Deputy Majority Leader, if we want to choose community service, what will be the guideline? There's no any guideline to that. And all of us know, until we have a guideline that will guide how community service is done, any attempt to align this to community service is like saying that the person should get away with it. But this argument about custodial sentence and the intention is not to imprison anybody or punish anybody through custodial sentence, the Speaker, is absolutely non-starter. Why am I saying that? When someone steals, our rule says that depending on what the person steals, there's a custodial sentence commensurate with the crime. It is not because the state hates that person. I don't think the state hates that person who steals. That's why we are imprisoning that person. So, Mr. Speaker, in my view, we must try as much as possible to be realistic and not to create the impression as if, one group of persons wants to create a law that is not heard anywhere apart from this country. Because once people commit crime, they need to be punished.
Well, the lead sponsor of the bill did not want to hear any of these proposals, but we've been hearing from Amnesty International, also that human rights advocacy group, and they say the provisions in the bill, including the custodial sentence, remains problematic. Ghana's country director, Genevieve Pattington, say they will resort to legal action if Parliament goes ahead to pass the bill.
Go through the courts to challenge the bill. I believe that is the right thing for us to do, the right approach. We are all citizens of Ghana. If we don't agree with something, we can always go to court and challenge it.
Well, that's Genevieve Pattington, the country director for Amnesty International. And we've in recent times heard the position of a number of diplomats, including the U.S. ambassador to Ghana, Virginia Palmer, who recently stated categorically that she will not be able to sell Ghanaian business to the global market or convince other businesses to come to Ghana. While another group, Open for Business Coalition, is also reiterating concerns over the impact of the bill on Ghana's economy and business sector. James Aveji has a copy of that and joins us in studio. What are the specific areas of the economy the statement refers to, or the report?
MFA, so for instance, they talk about the fact that if this is passed, it will actually affect tourism in domestic tourism. They come out with some figures that from their research, approximately over 51% of US and UK citizens who want to go on tourism come to Africa, and so if this bill is passed, it will affect domestic tourism. They also reiterated that point that if this is passed, businesses outside of Ghana who are already operating in the country may be away, or those who want to come start in Ghana would also resign that decision to come operate in the country. And so those and others are what they are saying. In conclusion, they point out the fact that it behoves on the Republic of Ghana, as the Constitution says in Article 6, Chapter 6, Article 35, that the state shall take all necessary actions to ensure that the national economy is managed in such a manner as to maximize the rate of economic development and to secure the maximum welfare, freedom, and happiness of every person in Ghana. And so that is their point.
Thank you very much, James Aveji. Let's bring in Sam George now. He's the lead sponsor of the bill. He's been on the floor today on the subject of custodial sentencing or non-custodial sentencing. And Sam George, you maintain that you insist we should have a lower limit of 3 and upper limit of 5 years for anybody found guilty. Why?
Well, Evans, that is not what the conversation was about. And the Honorable Afenyo-Markin led the House on a wild goose chase. He was engaged in filibustering. We were dealing with clause 17 of the bill today. Clause 17 of the bill doesn't talk about anybody engaged in homosexuality. 17 of the bill talks about persons who promote, sponsor, or fund homosexual activities or groups looking to promote homosexuality. And so his entire submission, for want of a better phrase, was of no substance and subsequence. Because when he was talking about reform and rehabilitate and all of that, it lacked any intellectual acumen. Because we were talking about persons who were to fund or sponsor LGBTQ activities. And so the Honorable Mahama Yariga made that point. And it became clear to the House that for almost 45 minutes, the Honorable Afenyo-Markin had engaged in an exercise of intellectual dishonesty.
But the chairman of the committee that is superintending over this particular bill, and Enyimadu Antwi, supported that position. The
chairman himself is in 6s and 9s when it comes to the facts of this bill. Because when America pointed out that we're not discussing persons involved in the act, the chairman had his face, he had eggs on his face. Because we were talking about people funding. And if you look at the intellect and logic that they were espousing, that we should scrap the jail sentence and rather introduce a punishment of 50 penalty units. 50 penalty units is equal to 300 Ghana cedis. So the intelligence of the chairman and the deputy majority leader was that for people who are funding and sponsoring homosexual activity in Ghana and groups, when you find them guilty, find them 300 cedis. Then why are we having the bill?
Well, but the fundamental point is about the destruction that this will inflict on people. Do you want to reform them or you want to destroy them?
Why would I want to reform somebody who willfully is funding an illegal activity?
But the reform is the entire point of the
reform
system,
is
right?
Focused on the persons engaged in the activity. And when you look at that, we introduce a fine there, and then for repeat offenders, or depending on the gravity of the offense, a jail sentence of minimum 6 months, maximum 3 years. So that tells you that our focus is on the persons who are looking to lure people in or entice people into it. So people caught in the act can actually be given a fine if you're a first-time offender, depending on the discretion of the judge and the court. The maximum sentence if you're caught in the act is 3 years. Even if the judge wants to give you the minimum 6 months. But for anybody who decides that this thing has been made an illegal activity, but still decides that they want to engage in the sponsorship of an illegal activity with their resources, why should we give the person a fine? Because the person has money and is pushing an illegality.
This objection that was raised today by Fonyo Making, supported by Anyiru Entry,
and it was thrown away by Parliament.
Well, so Parliament nonetheless went ahead, completed the consideration stage.
Because Parliament deals with intellectual argument. There was no intellectual acumen in the arguments that were espoused by both Afenyo and the chairman.
As it stands now, with what has happened today, when do you now anticipate that at least to come to a floor, at least for a vote, or get it passed?
Once again, like we said, we hope that before the end of this meeting, we will pass it because we're done with consideration. However, we need to have the drafting office clean it up and then bring it back, and then we will go through the third reading. It could be any time, but again, for me, I can't keep a timeline because it's at the discretion of Mr. Speaker. But I am confident that before this meeting will rise on the 22nd of March, we will pass the bill.
Sam George, thank you very much.
Hit the Labour front now, and tonight we will not dialogue. That's the response of Labour unions as they reject Finance Minister's call to negotiate, insisting they will hit the streets on Tuesday if government does not withdraw rather than suspend the directive to charge 15% VAT on electricity. Well, the Finance Ministry, we know last night, said it had suspended the implementation of the tax to pave way for negotiations with government. The Finance Ministry believes the suspension of the tax and further engagement with stakeholders will proffer a way forward. Information Minister Kojo Ponkruma insists they must dialogue to find alternative measures to plug the revenue shortfall.
If you read the Finance Ministry statement, it says in that same statement that they are suspending implementation and they are going to do some further consultations, and they expect that those consultations will yield other measures that they can achieve the same fiscal, program that they have put in place. So it's not a fait accompli that they have suspended it and that's the end of the matter. They are going to have to find a way to answer that question. President Akufo-Addo's government has to find a way to answer that question, and the Finance Minister, who is responsible for fiscal policy, having put out that statement, even included that in the statement. Mm-hmm.
But Labour remains steadfast in their demand for a cancellation of the tax, rejecting any plan by government to negotiate. Vice President of the Trades Union Congress, Ken Kodia, spoke on Newsdesk.
We are yet to receive an official letter from the Ministry of Finance withdrawing their position. We are hopeful that before close of day today, maybe they will release a letter to us. But as of now, we don't have any such confirmation. Organized Labour is very resolved that anything that will bring hardship or tend to affect the living condition of the worker or the Ghanaian populace in general, we will object it. There are other ways that government can raise money to supplement the budget, but not forms that will bring hardship to the poor worker. Organized Labour is likely to meet tomorrow if we receive a letter from the Ministry of Finance withdrawing the 15%. And until we receive that letter, we are resolved on the path we want to take in the demonstration. Like I said, I'm hoping that letter will come today. But we are resolved. The appetite for strike is very ripe. And we don't want to go that path. We want to engage and resolve all the issues pending.
Guess who is joining us right now? The president of NAGRAT. He is Angel Kabonu, the National Association of Graduate Teachers. Mr. Kabonu, thanks for your time here on News Tonight. We just heard your colleague say the appetite is ripe. Well, it's been a few hours since the statement was issued. Has that appetite changed?
Well, a meeting is been called for tomorrow at the TUC Hall to assess the letter that has been sent to us for a decision to be taken on the way forward.
This meeting tomorrow, your own expectations of that, based on what you know, it will address the concerns you have?
Well, the letter that I have read is talking about a suspension of the tax. So when the letter was first written, we called a meeting. We perused the letter and took a decision to go on strike. A letter has come. We call for a total withdrawal of the letter. The letter that the government is issued is talked about suspension. So we will peruse the letter tomorrow, and definitely the media will be addressed as the way forward.
And yesterday, the vice president also made some pronouncements on this. And of course, whilst he was speaking, we saw that a letter had come asking the ECG and NETCO to suspend. I mean, there's a willingness on government part at least to listen, to dialogue a bit more, is it not? Is there not?
Well, I think the finance minister has been totally isolated from the reality surrounding us. Because if the flag bearer of his own political party is indicated that if the tax is on the books and he happens to be elected, he will erase that tax. The flag bearer of the NDP, John Dramani Mahama, also indicated that if he is elected, he will cancel that tax. We are in February. We are 10 months away from election. Why will the finance minister want to implement something that is unpopular with Ghanaian workers only for it to be scrapped in January by both the flag bearer of his own political party and the flag bearer of the opposition party?
As we speak tonight, government says if you are ready to dialogue, their interest is finding an alternative to plug that gap that will be left if they don't implement a 15% VAT on electricity. What alternatives are you ready to offer, if any?
Well, before haircut, we made several suggestions to government to look at instead of implementing the haircut. One such suggestion we made to government is what Bawumia just said yesterday. We told government to cut down on the size of government. Government said it was not possible. And yet, yesterday, the flag bearer of their own party is saying that he will run government with 50 ministers. So look at the time that we made this suggestion to government from organized labor. So if today the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party sees the value in that suggestion, if that valuable suggestion had been implemented 2 or 3 years ago, where would we have been in the country in terms of saving resources? So that's number one. Number two, we ask that government reviews highfalutin giveaway programs that it runs in this country on the altar of the altar of expediency. So honestly speaking, look, last year there was a climate conference in Dubai. Look at the number of people who went. Calculate the cost of flight, calculate the cost of hotel, and possible per diem. So we made several suggestions to government from the front. Look, I was a member of the Economic and Social Dialogue, representing union on one side, the Minister of Finance on another side, employers on another side, where we were dialoguing on the economy of this country. It has come to naught.
And just give me clarity on this. A couple of weeks ago when this came up, the TUC, they were very clear that they will not even entertain dialogue. They just want to withdraw. Has that position changed, or you're now willing to sit with government?
Ivan, you have always been making this mistake. It is not TUC. It is organized labor.
Organized labor. Are you willing to sit with government? Has that position changed? Or you still stand?
No, on the issue of the VAT, we are not willing to sit on with government.
Okay. And that's Angel Kabonuda. He is the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT.
Whilst we wait for that meeting tomorrow and the outcome, some unions are already proceeding with plans to hold that massive demonstration across all 16 regions with discussions ongoing with the police for protection. Patrick Tete Binyemi is chairperson of the Greater Accra chapter of Organised Labour.
This is not only about workers, it's even about we and our families at home. Whatever you buy as electricity, you pay a 15% VAT on it. And this has repercussions on our artisans, our tradesmen, and it's going to affect all of us. Our affiliates from the GPRTU across Greater Accra are not going to work. They are all going to join. So let us take note that on 13th, within the Greater, no commercial vehicle within Accra will work. The drivers, all of them are going to join the demonstration. And we are going to register our displeasure that it is not about suspension, but it is about total withdrawal.
Well, the Ghana Private Road Transport Union have also directed their members not to work next week Tuesday if government refuses to withdraw the VAT. Abasi Morris, PR of the union.
We are part of them. TUC the government and try and sign up to the end of on the 12th, on the 1 on the 13th, no, we are all joining.
We are with TUC on this demonstration. Government must withdraw this policy.
On the 13th, because you can't organize labor. No, we are cutting razor. Because you are fighting for the eco tax. No, the way we are cutting razor.
Tell every driver in the country that we're not working. We also pay electricity bills.
Now, the rare demonstration for your eco tax, no, so emission tax, no, and the way by 13th, no, by cutting razor.
That's Abasi Moro speaks for GPRTU. Thankfully, Evans and George do not pick Trotro, so they will not be stranded. In fact, you've been told not to go to work that day as well, so you will see how it goes.
You walked to work today?
No, I didn't walk.
You picked Trotro?
By God's grace, no.
You picked Trotro?
No, I didn't.
You picked a taxi?
No, I didn't.
Uber?
No.
Okay.
I drove to work.
In an SUV.
In an SUV. Yeah.
Is it an SUV?
Yes, it
Absolutely.
is.
Okay. The red SUV.
Yeah. Since they know my car more than I do. That's fine. What's
with the number plate 2024.
That's a lie.
Okay. George, what do you have in the headline?
So, Ivan, since we started producing oil in commercial quantities, we have saved $1.2 billion, and that's what we have set aside. I'll be getting you more details on that one. And a strong dollar demand from energy and manufacturing centers continue to exert pressure on the Ghana city. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationers, Interstanks and Pepsodent, Charcoal and Herbal.
When you want to eat, just Momo it. Tired of the long queues in the supermarket? Pay with Momo. When you really want that beautiful new blouse, just Momo it. When you want to get a trim and get fresh to impress you know who, just Momo it. When you need to pay your utility bills and domestic staff, Shani Momo. When you want to send love to the family back home, send some Momo. Join the millions of MTN Momo users all over Ghana and live life the brighter way. So just Momo it. MTN.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kingdom Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom
Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHF, Kumasi KNUST Campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
Water is needed all day, all night. So, remember Syntex tank all day, all night. 7 years warranty. Select any color for free. In no de crack, in no de spoil. Call Accra on 0244 335 168. Kumasi 0505 555 666. Syntex tank. A strong, a tough. Water is needed all day, all night. So, remember Syntex tank all day, all night. 7 years warranty. Select any color for free. In no de crack, in no de spoil. Call Accra on 0244 335 168. Kumasi 0505 555 666. Syntex tank. A strong, a tough.
Central University, Ghana's leading private Christian university, has open admissions. Apply now for a degree in environmental engineering, fashion design, landscape design, interior design, business administration, economics, law, civil engineering, architecture, computer science, IT, theology, and many others. Degrees are available on our campuses in Mutual, ICGC Christ Temple, Abosokai, and Kumasi. Also enroll in our MBA with various specializations. Scholarships are available for needy but brilliant students. Call us on 0303 318 583 or visit our website at central.edu.gh for more information. Central University, raising transformational leaders through faith, integrity, and excellence.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, Ghana has saved a little over $1.2 billion from what it earned since it started producing and exporting crude oil in commercial quantities from 2011. Now, this is coming from the review of the Petroleum Holding Fund's report over the last 2 years. There is more in this report.
These are earnings that Ghana got from export of its share from crude oil over the years, as well as taxes and levies paid by other companies working in the country's oil sector. But based on Ghana's petroleum laws, Ghana is required to put some of the money aside in the Ghana Stabilization Fund and the Ghana Heritage Fund. The Stabilization Fund will ensure that government can draw down on these funds when the revenue are not doing well in a particular financial year. However, the Heritage Fund keeps some of the money for future generations. The Stabilization Fund ending December had about $190 million in it. The Ghana Heritage Fund had more than $1 billion. The total amount of $1.2 billion that Ghana has gotten since it started oil production has been lodged in Federal Reserve of the Bank of New York. The country's petroleum laws limit the areas that the monies can be invested. This has led to limited investment returns on these funds. This has led to some pushing for a review of the laws to help improve the amount of money that the country can save from oil-related activities in the country.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, a senior tax partner with accounting firm Deloitte George & Kuma has described the suspension of the VAT on domestic electricity consumption as a prudent move. The Finance Ministry, in a statement, has announced the suspension of the tax pending further engagement with organized labor. But George & Kuma says the timing of this tax is not good, looking at the current challenges facing the economy.
To implement VAT at this time of our economy, I think that will not be the best time to do that. We have been talking about 15%, but the reality is that once we are talking of implementing VAT on the usage of electricity, it's going to go together with the levy. So we are talking of 6% levy, which will be charged on the utility bill or electricity bill, and then the 15% is charged on it. So putting that together, the increase is actually 21.9% and not just 15%. So that's one thing that we should be aware of.
A senior tax partner at accounting firm Deloitte, George Ankuma, who is saying that you actually end up paying even 21.9% VAT on electricity when this law or tax is actually enforced. Now, strong demand for dollars from firms operating the manufacturing and energy sectors continue to put some pressure on the Ghana cedi. Now, this is what we have picked up from some currency traders in the commercial banks. There is more in this report.
The current pressure on the Ghana cedi was worsened earlier this week due to what some market players are describing as the limited dollar supply on the market. This development was compounded by a surge in demand for dollars by businesses, especially in the manufacturing and energy sectors. Checks by Joy Business shows that the Bank of Ghana has stepped up support, releasing some dollars to meet the demand over the last few days. However, some of these businesses are arguing that this is still not enough to meet their demand. On the contrary, the Bank of Ghana insists that it needs to be strategic, especially in these times. The Bank of Ghana's international reserves crossed the $6 billion mark last month. This indicates that the bank is in a strong position to support the local currency. But some have argued that they have not seen enough support from the Bank of Ghana in terms of dollar supply.
And that is a business desk report. Now let's still stay within the banking space or the Bank of Ghana, because Bank of Ghana's new macroeconomic database portal is already reviewing or receiving some positive response from its stakeholders. Now this includes the country's donors and some persons within the academia. From the donors, they believe that it will go a long way to bring about some transparency when it comes to the Bank of Ghana's programs and monetary measures. Professor Peter Court is one of those persons in the academia that has been speaking about this platform with Joy Business.
Getting real-time data is very difficult. So with this portal that the Bank of Ghana has launched, is going to help us as academics, as analysts, as policymakers, to be able to access real-time data, to be able to undertake analysis that will inform policy. So for me, it's one of the greatest things we've done to our country. And I believe other institutions, Ministry of Finance should also take a lead in this and provide a similar portal. I also think that it will promote transparency. We are able to have same data, unified data, instead of academics for policymakers, for even practitioners and for the citizens, as well as for the private sector businessman who would want to speak about inflation, would want to project his budget flows.
Professor Peter Korte is an economist and the director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. Now, President of the Center for Global Development, Mashoud Ahmed, has expressed concerns about the impact of high interest loans on economies in Africa, like that was coming from the IMF and the World Bank. According to him, the terms of most of these agreements makes it difficult for these low-income countries to repay them, by rather pushing them into high debt distress.
The buildup of debt as a share of GDP is doubled, I think, and the terms on which that debt was taken on. There are countries that were borrowing before COVID at 8-9%. And if you're borrowing at 8 or 9% commercial markets, it's going to be hard to be able to generate projects that are going to pay that off. So frankly, we need to take a little bit of the responsibility on the international community side as well, because we were not raising the alarm on those things quite as much at the time as we do now.
And Mashoud Ahmed is the president of the Center for Global Development, sharing his thought there. I mean, for tonight, we're focusing on industry, on PM Express Business Edition, and how are they doing in these times. You know, they talk about industry struggling, manufacturing firms struggling, but going forward, how are they responding to the recovery of the economy? We'll be engaging the President Association of Ghana Industries, Dr. Humphrey Yimdake, tonight as we talk about industry, the state of industry now as we speak, and what can be done to turn around their fortunes. Is at 9 p.m. on Joy News and all our social media platforms as we talk about industry and the economy today.
Can't wait for that. It's at 9 p.m. Thank you very much, George. Now, let me take you to the Ashanti region, and 7 golden artifacts looted from Kumasi in 1874 found their way to the Fowler Museum in California, United States, and Otumfuo Setu II secured the artifact after several failed attempts by his predecessors, including Otumfuo Ajimanprempe II. Professor Kwesi Ampene of the Department of Music at the Tufts University at Massachusetts, United States, facilitated the return of the artifact. He tells Joy News in an exclusive interview that the Asantehene is happy about the return of these artifacts made of pure gold.
When we came here, Otumfuo, His Majesty, and I'll quote him like this, he said that he has been able to return our soul back to, its original place. Why did he say that? And of course, we have to recognize Opimso Setu Abebio for his efforts in this, because he was the one who empowered me, who empowered me to facilitate. I didn't just do it on my own, but because he has also initiated this whole process of trying to get these materials back. So the items are still items that are, have spiritual relevance to us. They still have that relevance to us. They are still active. They will be activated and they will be used. The Asipim chair will be used. The Sikamina will be used. The necklaces, the armband, all of them have this same spiritual significance for us. For us, they are not just regular arts, you see. And look at the way, if they don't have the spiritual essence, how would they be taken away and move from one place to another place? But in 150 years, it will come back to its original source. That is what we have to know, that the power in this is not just a regular art. It is something deeper than that.
Let's bring in my colleague Ohiming Teria. He's been covering this outdooring ceremony for us, and he joins us on the line. So Ohiming, do we know what these artifacts are exactly?
Yes, MFR, 7 artifacts were brought to the palace under the strictly watch of military men to the Asantehene. Out of the 7, we are told 6 of them are made of pure gold, and the other one, a Asipim chair or stool, which was used by the late Asantehene Kofi Kakari in the 1844 era, was also brought to the palace. And the Asantehene also said efforts are underway to repatriate 32 of these artifacts kept at the British Museum.
These 7 that have been returned so far, do we know where they will be kept in particular?
Yes, according to sources at the Malaysia Palace, it will be kept at the Malaysia Museum, where the general public will be allowed to access these artifacts. And beyond this, the museum will also have to undergo rehabilitation, as explained by one of the technical advisors to the return of the artifacts.
No, the abode will be the Malaysia Palace Museum, definitely. So the museum will undergo some adjustments. Some installations will have to take place. The security will be beefed up, and there will be other things that will be done before these objects are finally taken to the museum. That should be around April. It's a public museum, even though private, so it will be open to the public. And these are new acquisitions, and so the public will see them and will be able to appreciate them.
Let's talk about the cultural importance of these artifacts.
Yes, if you take the Mpomponsio sword, for instance, this was the sword that an Asantehene will use during his coronation, if I may say so, or swearing of oath to Asanteman, as it used to be. And it was the same sword that was used by the paramount chiefs or their senior chiefs, pledging their allegiance to him. This was created during the time of Setu II. That was before even Asante got into what it was. And it was taken away 1874, and the one that is in use now was created after 1900. So the original Pomponcio had been with the British Museum all these years. Of course, there are the spiritual undertakings of these objects, and for something that was created specifically for a purpose, and by no other person than Komfo Anokye. That means a lot to the people of Asante. So it coming back among the objects from the British Museum, it's important for us to even compare, if for nothing, to compare what was there and what it is today.
So that's.
Professor
are you going to be
Penny.
visiting?
I will.
Yeah.
I really want to see
Probably want to
it.
bring the kids along as well.
Yes, definitely. We'll go to Kumasi shortly.
Let's stay there, actually. Let's stay in Kumasi because the former President Mahama has been there and he's been meeting with farmers as part of the party's plans to put together a manifesto for this year. He presented a number of plans to members of the General Agricultural Workers Union, and he was clear that under his watch, there will be a new legislation will be introduced to deal with persons who fell cash crops, trees, for the purposes of illegal mining or galamsey.
As we've said, we always come out with a People's Manifesto because we don't sit with professors and intellectuals in a room and write a manifesto for people. We interact with them to find out what the real challenges are, and then we incorporate that into our manifesto. We will review the imposition of taxes on agricultural commodities. We will reintroduce the provision of free agro inputs like fertilizers, insecticides, fungicides, etc. to cocoa farmers. We will ensure transparency in distribution of inputs through farmers' cooperatives. Under the 24-hour economy framework, we will support local companies in formulating and producing fertilizer locally to create more jobs. We started the work on a pension scheme for farmers and will ensure its full implementation.
That's former President John Dramani Mahama. Time for sports, and the Eagles are soaring higher and higher. But what are we talking about tonight?
Well, tonight we are talking about the search for the new Black Stars coach. And guess what? Some over 500 applicants have now... 500 applicants. That's according to the GFA Vice President Marcado.
Is Evans' name in there?
Yeah, I'm sure he's got some coaching credentials because they're looking for somebody who's coached for over 15 years. So I'm not sure Evans have even started 6 months.
I've been coaching Manchester United from the comfort of my couch since 1999.
That will be enough. That will be enough. But the position, of course, became vacant after the JFA sacked Chris Sutton. And, Marcado was speaking on Akom FM, based in the Ashanti region, where he assured Ghanaians that the best coach will be appointed, stating that the GFA is committed to selecting a coach who meets the required criteria. Meanwhile, the president of the association, Kete Kweku, has also assured that the association will commit the new coach to a long-term contract.
I know all of us love our Black Stars, and our Black Stars players do love all of us. And all of us are committed towards fixing the problems with the Black Stars. Indeed, that journey has already started with a search for a new trainer for our Black Stars. When we find the new trainer, it is our collective decision and determination to stay for a long haul with a new set of trainers for our Black Stars and for all our national teams.
That's Kate Okrek who's speaking there. Well, the Vice President, of course, touched on a number of issues yesterday, and he did touch on sports development, where he reviewed that he will introduce a sports fund that he will use to develop the sports in the country. He's also been speaking about the partnership he's hoping to create with the private sector who will invest in the game.
And we cannot maximize the full potential of Ghana sports with the same funding model we have operated since independence. My government will therefore prioritize the creation of incentives for corporate sponsorship as a sustainable module of financing sports development and promotion of our national teams, including football, athletics, boxing at all levels. This will take the financial pressure off government and also enable government to redirect more support to other sports disciplines.
Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia there. Well, Evans, it's going to be Nigeria versus Ivory Coast in the final come Sunday. Nigeria have won the Amapiano contest against South Africa. Right now, Ghana is getting a lot of shade. So not sure where you stand, Ivory Coast or Nigeria. Where do you stand?
That's a good one. I think I'll back the Nigerians.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
I know people are looking at me and wondering why, but I'll back the Nigerians.
Yeah, you're very surprised.
I just love the way they play. For me, it's just purely down to the game I appreciate.
Okay.
And I watched them this whole tournament. I've loved their play.
Well, you should visit social media and see how they've been treating Ghanaians after making it to the finals. You might have a change of heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Let's talk about the quality of our air. In the coming months, schools in Osu are in for a positive transformation aimed at reducing air pollution in their surroundings and creating safer spaces for children. City engineers currently undergoing innovative training to rethink and reshape road construction methods are at the forefront of this initiative. The ultimate goal is to strategically redesign these roads, minimizing exposure to harmful air pollutants and fostering environments that allow children and neighborhoods to thrive in safety and well-being. Beat reporter Michael Ashali has more in this report.
Air pollution is the second biggest threat to health in Ghana. Exhaust fumes from the transport sector alone is responsible for almost half of Accra's particulate concentrations. The city of Accra is one of the most heavily polluted places in the country. The WHO estimates that more than 28,000 Ghanaians die prematurely every year as a result of air pollution. Children in urban schools often endure the adverse effects of vehicle fumes. Headmaster of Osu Salem School, Emmanuel Taki, knows this very well.
Because the school, because it's not walled, you always find children crossing to get food and all those things. So the safety of the children are priority as a educator. So the school is very close to the road, and sometimes or usually you find cars parking in the school and around the school area.
For stakeholders, their interest is to move from pollution to solution.
Let's look at these 6 strategies and see which one that we can implement here.
City engineers and technocrats pulled from some of the municipal assemblies in the streets of Accra as members of a workshop organized by Clean Air Fund and Global Designing Cities Initiative. The goal is to assist engineers in discovering innovative approaches to prioritize pedestrian mobility and eliminate pollution within communities. In some countries, vehicle lanes have been repurposed to bicycle lanes. Vehicles in other countries are banned from using certain roads at certain times. In Ghana, 2 schools from Osu will benefit from the initiative. Sponsors of the initiative, Clean Air Fund, believes the project will allow children to play safely in their schools and neighborhoods. Victoria Osu-Teria is an analyst with Clean Air Fund.
On this project, we are looking at designing or redesigning streets into child's play within the Korle-Klottey municipality. In the course of that, we'll be measuring air quality concentration levels. So that will be done before the start of the project, the designing itself, during the designing, and then post the designing. So we'll be able to identify pollution hotspots levels.
Program manager of GDCI, Hayreton, explained how this will be done.
Do is start with a pilot project, select one school, and see if we can create a safe space for kids to play, removed from air pollution, and then showing the results so that we can implement these kind of projects in different parts of the municipality as well.
So how soon can we see any of those projects come to life?
In the next months, we'll be doing some design projects, so we'll be sharing that with the community as well.
However, Hayreton is expecting some challenges along the way.
There are areas in the neighborhood where there is no sidewalk space and people are forced to walk on the roadbed. We think this creates a road safety risk in addition to air quality issues. So I think there will be some challenges with reallocating that space, how we can take that space and use it for other uses.
Municipal Chief Executive of Korle-Klottey Municipality, Samuel Ni Ajay Teria, pledged to support the initiative to its conclusion.
We can't remove lanes at this stage. At least
The parking of the vehicles next to the school is something that we all have to come together and engage the restaurant and the nearby offices. That is not acceptable. The alternative will be maybe you take a Uber and drop and then go in, or use public transport or any other public transport. That will be the alternative for now.
Maybe in the near future, they hope that these areas can be filled with more people than vehicles that pollute all day. Well, all the best to them. For Joy News, Michael Ashale.
This story was a collaboration with New Narratives. Funding was provided by the Clean Air Fund. The funder had no say in the content of the story.
And that's our show for tonight. And there's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. We have Ghana Connect tomorrow. We don't have news night. You want to stay for that. We have personality profile coming up next. What do we have?
Serwaa Bonsu, first female CEO of the Ghana National Chamber of Pharmacy.
Women on top.